Per reports from On3, the Florida Gators are listed as a team to monitor in the pursuit of Colorado offensive tackle Jordan Seaton. And,
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever the podcast and on YouTube. I am Brandon Olsen, your host of Locked On Gators, a lifelong Florida Gators fan. And look, I will say, in general, I enjoy doing these lives. We were planning on going live at this time anyway. And then, about half an hour ago-ish, On3 put out a report. Pete Nakos, I believe it was. Pete Nakos put out a report that said for transfer portal intel and Colorado offensive, and this is the only thing I'm going to read that's, I'm pretty sure is this premium content? Yeah, this is premium content. So this is the only thing I'm going to read because I don't like reading or sharing premium content from other sites. I know people hate paywalls and all that, but it's how people make their living. I don't want people messing with my money. I'm not trying to mess with other people's money, right? So I will say all that. I also hate when people go, Groth, say this. It's the worst. But for Colorado offensive lineman Jordan Seaton, Pete Nakos put, when On3 released its early schools to watch Monday night for the Colorado transfer, Oregon and Texas were mentioned as the top two schools to watch. Speaking with sources on Tuesday morning, Florida is another school worth monitoring. Texas A&M is not expected to be a top contender at this point, but the situation remains fluid. Other programs of note could include LSU, Miami, Ohio State, Ole Miss, and Texas Tech. Seaton has yet to officially enter the transfer portal, but is currently expected to take visits. And many Florida Gators fans may remember that when Jordan Seaton was coming out of high school, he was indeed considering Florida for at least a bit. Originally from the DC, Maryland area, went to IMG, was just, pretty sure unanimously the top offensive lineman in the class. And when he entered the transfer portal, not gonna lie, I pretty quickly was like, that ain't happening, right? I reached out to someone and I said, hey, is this happening? And I was pretty quickly and pretty definitively told no. Which isn't shocking, right? Because Jordan Seaton, and when he entered the portal, myself in my not knowing what players typically get in the transfer portal, I assumed he'd be one of the higher paid non-quarterbacks, which would leave him at about 2 or 3 million. And I forgot who it was. It was someone from On3 said 3.5 million to 4 million is the range that they anticipate him getting. Basically saying that, offensive tackles will get a certain percentage of the cap. And for a team spending $35 million, that would be $3.5 million if it's 10%, right? Because the original 2.5, I think that got reported, was 7% of a team's cap if they're spending $35 million. So the reports that came out list Florida as a team to monitor. Couple notes about that one. One, I would absolutely try. I'll tell you that. I would absolutely try to make that one happen. But realistically, I do think it's important to acknowledge that I don't think it's going to happen. Okay. And not just because, like I said, I reached out to someone and was told not happening. It was not happening. But because I do think that he's going to command a pretty penny, and that's typically not Florida's way of doing things. But also, there's going to be teams that are more desperate to land him, right? And I think that for Florida, you can kind of bring up that, recruiting-wise, is that we've got Phil Troutwine, who is a great offensive line coach, one of the best in the country. That, of course, was part of the process. Like everybody was recruiting him, right? Like, yeah, I promise you, you can look it up. He's going to have an offer from Penn State, right? Because everybody was recruiting this kid. He was stud tackle, right? And then, by the way, he went to college and was a stud, right? I'm looking up the visits right now, and yeah, he took 2 visits to Penn State. So Jordan Seaton took 2 visits to Penn State. So he's at least met and spoken to and dealt with Phil Troutwine. But again, I just I think there's going to be teams that are more desperate. Once he hit the portal, I thought Texas was the team that I was looking at. I know everybody mentions Ole Miss, Texas Tech. Ole Miss is in there as well on the list that Pete Nagos put out. But like of just the teams on this list, I could see Oregon, right? They went out and got Isaiah World from Nevada, and he didn't exactly work out the way that they were hoping to, which is not surprising. He was always a developmental guy. We spoke about him. We spoke about him when he entered the transfer portal out of Nevada. He was someone that I was like, look, go get him. Like, I wanted him to be on. I wanted him to be a Florida tackle this past season. He ended up going to Oregon. He's going to go to the NFL draft now. Maybe Oregon looks to replace him with Jordan Seaton, right? Texas, usually a pretty good spot for an offensive lineman. This past year was not great for them, but still usually a pretty good spot for an offensive lineman. LSU, Miami, Lane has LSU spending money. Miami always spends money. The thing with Miami that I'm interested with is what that's going to look like, what their line's going to look like, because right now they have a bunch of guys who came in with Mario, and then mostly were developed by Mario and Alex Mirabal. And now we're seeing those guys get cycled out. So I'm just curious to know what that's going to look like next year. Maybe the portal is more of an approach for them, right? They're going to get a ton of money with the portal, with the national championship appearance, with all that stuff. They're going to get a ton of money. They can go be big spenders for Jordan Seaton if they want. Again, Lane has LSU spending money. Ohio State, always going to spend a ton of money, and a great spot for an offensive lineman to go. Ole Miss, I mean, hey, they're spending money. Like they've spent a lot of money on defense in this cycle. They've retained a lot of their offensive players. And Texas Tech Texas Tech is like, it doesn't even matter if we need it. We're just going to throw money at it. That's it. Which good for that. I see you all in the chat. I love you. We'll talk about it. But yeah, Jordan Seaton would be a really fun target. But I think that there's going to be teams that are more desperate. Because I don't think Florida's desperate, right? Like, Florida's a team to monitor here, right? That's the word. It's speaking with sources on Tuesday morning. Florida is another school worth monitoring. And maybe that's an indicator that, hey, Florida is circling back with boosters, right? And saying, hey, what if we got some more money from you? What if, like trying to pool money, I guess, together and saying, hey, if we can get enough for Jordan Seaton, then we're going to go get Jordan Seaton. If we can't, then we can't, right? Then you've got Phil Troutwine there. You've got what I think is going to be a really good interior of your offensive line. Tackles are questionable, but that's a great selling point for Jordan Seaton, right? You could block for ball. Your quarterback is going to have a ton of dynamic weapons. You've got one of the best offensive coordinators in the country. You've got one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. Go ahead. And look, I will say this. I don't think Jordan Seaton is this perfect offensive tackle prospect, target, whatever you want to call him. I don't think he's perfect. I think his run blocking needs a good bit of work. And I've said this about some other guys too. I think that we see a lot of offensive linemen now that are more about creating stalemates than actually like winning and driving. And maybe part of that is that zone blocking over the past decade has become more prevalent, more relevant. And so you're just kind of holding them off and then getting downfield or upfield. Maybe that's part of it, but I also don't necessarily care about that. Like, obviously I want you to be a good run blocker, but Jordan Seaton does the harder thing. Like, Jordan Seaton does the harder part really well, where he's a really good pass blocker. And that's the hardest thing to do as an offensive lineman. It's pass blocking, right? And in run blocking, a lot of guys can run block, right? In high school, there's 135 of you in here. However many of you played high school, how much of your offense was more about run blocking than pass blocking? Because I'll tell you that my offense when I played, and there's relevance to why I'm talking about high school specifically here. My offense when I played, we ran the ball all the damn time. I don't know why I said my offense. I wasn't playing on offense. But we ran the ball all the damn time, right? Why? Because it's a lot easier to teach offensive linemen to get downhill and run block than it is to teach them to pass block. Because pass block is more of the skill, patience, footwork, technique. Pass blocking is more all about that. And Jordan Seaton is already really, really good at that part. I think you can argue he might have been the best pass protector in college football this past year. I think that's a good argument. All right. I wouldn't say best offensive tackle, but best pass blocker. I think you've got a pretty good case if you're talking about Jordan Seaton there. Plenty of experience because he's been there for 2 years. And by the way, like he had a not good freshman season. Like I did not think he was that good as a freshman. That wasn't bad, but I think he was good for a freshman. But not good overall as a just player, like we talk about with a lot of guys. But I think this year he really just emerged as one of the best pass blockers in the country, if not the best pass blocker in the country. And so if Florida can go get him, hell yeah, do it. And I don't know the personality or the fit or the work ethic or any of the stuff like that, right? I don't talk about that with players. I'm talking about how well you play football, right? And Jordan Seaton plays it at a really high level, especially in pass protection. If you're Florida, I know it says a team to monitor. Again, maybe it's that. Right? Maybe you're like, all right, well, we're going to try to raise the money. And if we can raise the money, then great, we've got him. If we don't raise the money, then we don't have him, right? At that point, though, I then wonder a couple of questions, which, we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this when we get back with Locked On Gators. The new year is here, and it's the perfect time to reset your routine and refresh your space. If you're spending more time at home, you might as well love how it looks and feels, and that's why you should turn to Wayfair. It's a one-stop shop for getting your home back on track. From bedding and mattresses to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair makes it easy to start the year fresh. Get organized, refreshed, and back on track this new year for way less. Head to Wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. And there's nothing like college sports, right? I cannot wait for the first game of the Summerall era, the first year in the Summerall era, especially with the schedule that Florida currently has. Could be wins, could be a damn good time in Gainesville, right? The energy, the band, the tailgates, the moments that you'll remember forever. I mentioned this on this morning's episode. I don't think I'll ever forget being front row for Florida and Utah. And right in front of me, because I was right by the end zone, right in front of me was Amari Burney intercepting Cam Rising to win the game. It was beautiful. That's why Gametime gives the advantage back to fans, which that was my first time ever using Gametime. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I go to concerts on it all the time. Take the guesswork out of buying college tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account. Use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code Locked On College, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. I am Brandon Olsen, your host of Locked On Gators, lifelong Florida Gators fan. And a quick reminder before we keep talking about this, on swampsignal.substack.com, I'll put the link in the description. We've got scouting reports coming out about these Florida Gators transfer portal targets. What's up, T? How you doing? So we've got the Florida Gators scouting reports coming out. We've got or transfer portal additions. We've got TJ Shanahan there. We've got safety DJ Coleman in there already. And also tonight, after Florida and Oklahoma play in basketball, we'll be going live after that game. But when we talk about Florida potentially targeting Jordan Seaton, right? And again, this says Florida is another school worth monitoring, which to me, maybe that means that Florida is doing, like I said, just going to boosters and saying, hey, what would you give if we can get Jordan Seaton, right? And that then leads me to ask, is this a +1? Like you said, like and subscribe, everyone. Is it, which by the way, like the listeners are way better about saying like and subscribe than I am. It's wild. I should be better about that. I'm not. Personally, honestly, I'll say this because I know that there's people that send like super chats and stuff. I would honestly at this point rather you just tell other Florida Gators fans to watch, listen. Yeah, Q, join the subtext if you want to do that. Get news, get all this information. Come on, Brandon, what's with the clickbait? We ain't getting Seaton. I didn't say we're getting Seaton. I said that Florida's targeting Jordan Seaton because that's what On3 is reporting. Is that Florida's another school to monitor. Anyway, when we talk about this, I then am asked, or I then am reminded of two questions, right? First one is, if you don't get the money for Seaton, does the money that was like let's say, just the number that On3 put out was 3.5 million. Let's say that's the number you're looking for, right? But you don't raise that, you raise 2.5 million. Is this a situation where, boosters are like, oh, I'll give you this money if you get this player? Or is this like, hey, we'll give you this money and you use it how you use it, right? And we'd prefer you use it to get Seaton. But if you don't use it, if you don't get him, do you now have another 2.5 million to spend, or do you not? Which I do think, by the way, the former is, or the latter is more likely here with not. I do think that it would be we'll give you this for this guy. Yeah, I think that it would be more of like a, hey, well, yeah, I'll give you this money if you can get Jordan Seaton, but if you're not getting him, then no. Which I understand the thought process, but I kind of hate it, right? If I'm going to invest more, then it should be for a guy that I want, or in a specific situation. But also, like, if you're willing to give the money, give the money. That's how I would think. And I then am asking the question of, is this a +1, or is this, maybe having some kind of, I don't want to say doubt, but maybe not some kind of full, confidence? Is that the word? I don't want to use the wrong word, but in what you've done so far on the offensive line, where, you're like, oh, like we still want to add another tackle, which it seems like they haven't, right? To me, I think this is a +1. I think this is more likely that Florida is saying, hey, we're pretty comfortable with what we've done on the offensive line here, but this dude's a stud. And if we can get him on the roster, then get him on the roster. And I know, like, I'll pull the curtain back a little bit. I'm in like Florida group chats on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it, Discord, all that. And one of the conversations we were having was about, Florida not going after like the big name offensive tackles. Jordan Seaton has 2 years of eligibility, but I don't think he'll be here for more than another year. And so we were talking about, not going after the top ranked tackles and stuff like that, which rankings don't matter to begin with, but just about, how Florida's approach to things. Right. And I've said, I know that there's always people that are like, oh, who cares about how you would do things. Right. Let the coaches coach. Right. There's the people that complain about that. Let the coaches do that. That's their job. My job's to give opinions. So I am doing my job. And well, I would have focused more on tackle in the portal. I would have focused more on a defensive tackle and an edge rusher in the portal, like a bigger name edge rusher in the portal, or a big name edge rusher in the portal, like an Adam Trick, right? Which they did bring in, so kudos to them. I think that the approach this staff took was, we're going to go really top heavy on the coaching staff at coordinators and our coordinators and trenches, the most important spots on a coaching staff, right? And then you kind of went, all right, we're going to go for lesser known names that we're high on at other position coaches. And then on the roster side, they kind of went, all right, we know that Troutwine and Chapman are great coaches, great developers. So we can maybe not invest as heavily in some of the top names there and just give them guys they can work with. And then we'll go out and get, an Eric Singleton, right? And getting, other contributors there. That seems like the approach to me of like, hey, we're going to invest heavy in the top half or top heavy on the coaching staff, coordinators and trenches. And on the roster, we're going to go receivers and add them. Emmanuel Oyebadejo, I think, is going with a pretty damn solid ad there that I think he's going to play a lot this year in multiple positions. I know he's going to play a lot this year in multiple positions. And so I feel like you kind of went with that instead of saying, hey, we're going to swing on this big offensive tackle or this big offensive lineman. We're going to go get multiple guys that we think can be pretty high quality and let Phil Troutwine develop them. Which, again, similar to the just outright portal approach, is not how I would prefer things are done. That doesn't mean it's wrong. And we had that conversation with Billy, right? When we were talking about the fourth downs and stuff. Like my thought and my approach was always, and I think this is the approach that, again, this is another thing where I'm like, oh, I think it should be this way. But if you disagree, you disagree. I think that the approach that I take is, as long as I can see the logic in the decision making, I have a hard time crushing it. Right? Like I have a hard time being like, oh, that's an awful decision, bad move, whatever it is, as long as I can see the logic in it. And here I see the logic in the moves, right? I see saying Jordan, I see like, oh, Jordan Seaton hits the portal. Let's try to go get us a +1. Right? Like I see that logic working. I think, and also I will talk about this. Like it's a dead period right now for another till tomorrow is the end of the dead period. And so, we'll probably get more moving. Like there's going to be visits this weekend, I would assume, or we're expecting, right? Thursday, you have one with Trent Thomas, the tight end from South Alabama. But Florida right now, don't see it happening, Brandon. I also don't. Sorry, I realized I said this at the very beginning. I don't think this happens. Okay. I said it on this morning show. I mentioned it that, I think a lot of us wanted to go for offensive tackle and Jordan Seaton hit the portal and everybody's eyes kind of lit up when he hit the portal, but ain't happening. I had no intention of even talking about Jordan Seaton again until about half an hour before we started this live show. Pete Nakos put out a report with On3 and said that Florida is a school to monitor, right? Like we were planning on going live today at noon-ish to just talk about the transfer portal. And then Pete Nakos put out this report and it's like, all right, well, now we have to talk about this. Tomorrow, I think tomorrow's show, we'll talk transfer portal strategy. Because I do think that Florida's just mindset in the portal is very interesting, right? And I will say, like, I don't know what you guys expected in the portal. Actually, that's what I'm going to ask you. We're going to be here for another few minutes. So I'm going to ask you this. With how Florida has performed in the transfer portal so far, is that what you expected? Did they do better than you expected or worse than you expected? And I'm not saying than you wanted. I'm saying than you expected. Like that's what I'd like to ask, just to know how you think they performed compared to your expectations, not compared to your desires. Like it's not even about, I wanted them to get this player and they didn't. Nah, Harrison, you're good. Like I said, like I have been doing this show for 25 minutes, and I was like, oh, haven't even revisited that. Like, yeah, I don't think this happens. I'm not saying this to say that it happens. I am saying actively, I don't think this happens. I was told yesterday right away that they're like, yeah, that ain't happening. And then this morning, it's Florida's another school worth monitoring, according to On3. And for me, I'm thinking like, yeah, okay, way better is what I anticipated. For me, again, like I view Jordan Seaton as a +1, and I'm someone who I'm not incredibly high on him, right? Like I think he's, again, maybe the best pass protector in college football. I think he's a very good offensive tackle. I don't think he's, the best offensive tackle in the country. Right. I wanted and expected better. Then I don't know what the hell you're talking. Tony, you're going to say quarterback. That's the only thing you're complaining about. That's what you complain about all the time. I know. I'm familiar with your game. We should go after him. We're Florida. They are going after him reportedly. they are. So yeah, I think that there's that. Yeah, better. I thought it would take them a while to get some quality players. I knew we'd get depth with how Coach John navigated the portal at Tulane. His talent plus good coaching could change things. Yeah, no, hey, look, things can change rapidly for the Florida Gators if things go according to plan. And I'm gonna say this because I know, like, I see the comments section usually, right? I see the comment section. I see the tweets in the group chats. Like, I see all these things, right? And I see the expectations going like, we need to be a playoff team in 2026. Zach, that's a great point. Exceeded mostly due to player retention. Not many teams retained, their top 5 guys they wanted to retain, which Florida did. So not many teams got to do that. Get a Seaton and now it's a Seat. You're not getting a Seaton, right? I'm sorry. Like, again, we could talk about them targeting him and monitoring him, but right now I would view that so far away from happening. And so there's that. But for Florida, like, I don't know. I don't think playoffs in 2026 is a reasonable expectation here. And so that's how I think about it. I think that you're looking at a team where it's, potentially, but I don't think that should be the expectation. Like, I'm not saying it can't happen. But I'm saying that I don't think that should be the expectation. 16-team playoff, by the way. No, it's not. It might be, but it's not like set to be 16. That's loser talk, Brandon. No, it's not. Look, if you're not gonna come here and get sunshine pumping. Like, even when I'm hyped, it's hyped because I'm hyped. From August, it'll be reasonable. 12-0, baby. That's fair. I'm not taking that from you. You go ahead. But yeah, I think for me, like, you're not coming here to get sunshine pumping. You're not getting that here. You're gonna get my honest opinion, which, I was 8 games a little while ago. I think right now I'd say I'm still 8 or 9. It's tough for me because while a lot of this team got better, like, I still have major question marks about quarterback. I do. Like, I have major question marks at quarterback. Because, again, like, you could watch every snap that Aaron Philo's ever taken, and you can watch every snap that Tramel Jones has ever taken. And here's the thing in college. And here's the thing. You still don't have enough to say you truly know what you have there. You don't. So yeah, you can't say that you've seen enough to know what you have there. This is Aaron Philo's coming in for his 3rd year in college, where he threw passes in 1 game this year, and it was against Gardner-Webb. Hasn't thrown a pass against a Power 4 team since 2024. NC State, I think, was the last game that he threw a pass against a Power 4 team. Tramel Jones has thrown passes in the Long Island game and Kentucky. That's it. They'll be better than DJ was last year. LOL, I promise you that. Yeah, no, I'm not doubting that. But I do have major questions about what they're going to be. Keep the playoffs at 12. You're doing too much at 16. You're really messing up the calendar at that point. It's already bad now. So I think the calendar is the best argument. I think we're losing the argument of, 12 or 16 is too many teams, right? I think the calendar makes sense. But for the people that are like, oh, the 12th team isn't winning the champion, like, the 12th team is in there, right? We may have the worst QB in the SEC. We may have the best. We don't know. We don't know what the hell we have at quarterback. That's it. We may have the worst. We may have the best. We have no idea. We don't have the best. but we don't know, right? And so I think for me, like I love what they've done. I do. I feel really good about the interior of the offensive line. I have questions at tackle. I feel really good about the receiver room, really good about the backs. I have questions at tight end. I feel really good about the linebackers. I feel really good about safety now. I feel pretty good about corner. Depth is a little bit of an issue. I feel really good, I think, about the top of the defensive line, including edges. But depth-wise, we're going to have to see who steps up for it. What Florida and what John Summerall and his coaching staff have done for Florida in this transfer portal window has been massive. Okay, I don't want to overstate that at all, and I'm not trying to downplay it. I'm not trying to hand or send anybody in any direction. I'm just saying, like, what they've done has been awesome. This is still a roster that needs, or not even needs, that has questions that they've addressed. But just because you've addressed it doesn't mean that you fixed it. You tried to, but we won't know if you fixed it until they get on the field. Honestly, not until week 3 when you play your first Power 4 game against Auburn. And even then, we have no idea what Auburn's going to look like. Well, actually, they're going to probably look like USF because they just took a bunch of USF players. But we lost to USF last year, so who the hell knows? So look, I love what Florida's done. I do. There's still questions. I can't just keep raising my expectations. I think you raised the floor. I do, just with all the depth that you brought in and some of the guys, but I think that for quite a few people, they're hanging on, a lot of the teams on the schedule might be on a downswing, right? A lot of the teams on the schedule, we don't know what they're going to look like. They could be on an upswing. I mean, hell, I remember the Texas game in 2024, right? And we'll wrap up with this, and I'll address what I see in the chat right now. The Texas game in 2024. We had the commentators talking about, well, I'm glad, because this was right when Scott Strickland announced Billy was coming back. I don't think both lines are very questionable. I think the offensive line is very questionable. I think the defensive line needs depth, or doesn't have proven depth, but defensive line is not questionable. And offensive line is honestly not even questionable. It's tackle that's questionable for me. But I remember the 2024 season against Texas when we had, I forgot who the commentator was, but they're like, I think keeping Billy is a great idea because next year you're going to have an easier schedule because there's a lot of quarterbacks leaving and all that stuff. Like a bunch of these teams are going to be replacing quarterbacks. You look back to 2020, or you look forward to 2025, your schedule is going to be real easy. And then we came into this 2025 season, and that ended up being a considerably harder schedule than 2024. I don't like to do next year they're going to be worse. I don't like to do that. I'm not doing that again. We'll see what they are. We don't know what they are. We don't know what we are either. At least for 2024 to 2025, you can go, we're going to have a lot of retention, and they're not. And so that's a big advantage. I got to work that, right? It's tough. Brandon, if you had to pick right now who starts at left tackle game 1, I hope Fletcher Westphal. He's someone I was really high on coming out of high school. Didn't play this year because of injury. The other options are probably going to be like Emeka Ugorji, we're told is going to work at left tackle. Egan Boyer is probably going to work there. So I'm going to guess Fletcher Westphal. Georgia Tech knew what they had. They were okay losing Buster. Philo leaving tore their hearts out. I don't think they were okay losing Buster. I think they knew that their time with Buster was always limited. I think that's what it was. I think that they knew, hey, after this year, Buster's gone. I think that's what it was. I don't think they were like, okay. Like they were like, oh, all right, whatever. I think they were just kind of thinking he's gone. Like we've had him for 3 years. So that's probably a year longer than we should have had him. He's gone. We don't need the best. We need someone who can make reads and is competent, aka Kyle Trask would be great. Sure, yeah. An NFL quarterback would be great, but we don't know if we have that. Right? Ole Miss was worse on paper than they were last year. Exactly. Have you heard anything about Dice? We'll see, right? I mean, guys are starting lifting this week and all that. Dice is someone I'm interested to see what happens because he's always been someone who can play tackle, who can play guard. Obviously, tackle has more value, and tackle has more opportunity probably right now. So I'm interested to see what that happens. But we're going to talk tomorrow about, this transfer portal process. We're going to go live tonight after Florida plays Oklahoma in basketball. Hopefully wins that one. That's going to end at around 4:30 a.m., 5 a.m. my time. So looking forward to that one. But for Locked On Gators, I am Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work about the Florida Gators with swampsignal.substack.com. We got scouting reports coming out, free content, premium content, mostly free content. The scouting reports coming out there for the transfer portal players. We'll have some film ones are going to be premium. But yeah, the Florida Gators getting better, and I will see you all at the absolute latest later tonight.